What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel. That is Daniel Starkand, and not the way that we had hoped this season would begin. The Dodgers lose opening day, 8-5. Clayton Kershaw was a little sloppy, not with the bat, but on the mound. The Dodgers as a whole were sloppy. We had some errors, we had some wild pitches, we had some pass balls, we had some just mistakes made all over the place, and so it's a tough one. They're 0-1. They're below 500. They're winless in the 2021 season. We're not here to overreact to anything, but it's not exactly the way that we wanted to see this season start, is it, Daniel?
No, it's definitely not. But at the same time, like you just said, we got 162 of these things, so I don't see a reason to overreact here. It was just a weird game. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of sloppiness going on. But yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. You always want to start the season 1-0, especially when you're playing an inferior opponent like the Rockies. But hey, that's baseball for you. Things just didn't go the Dodgers' way today.
Well, here's a question I figure I'll start, and we'll get into kind of the mechanics of how we got from inning 1 to inning 9. But I'd love to ask you, Daniel, and anybody that's joining us on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, what's sort of the one word or phrase that you would use to describe the game that you just watched? I know when I was writing the headline, I used the word sloppy. I suppose the word fluky could be another one. It was a bizarre game where the Dodgers had a ton of hits. Clayton Kershaw gives up a ton of singles, but sloppy and fluky are kind of, those are the two I was thinking through. I went with sloppy because that felt more appropriate. And I'll get into that. Yes, I think there was some bad luck the Dodgers had, but I also think they kind of created some bad luck for themselves as well. So for you, Daniel, is there a word or a phrase that you would use to describe sort of the game that you just watched?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with the word I just used, and that's weird. Like, how often do you see a game where a home run goes over the fence but doesn't count as a home run? A team has basically half their guys get on base
Yeah.
and still only score 5 runs, while the other team just is hitting ground balls all day, and they seem to all be getting through. So yeah, I'm gonna go with weird. And I hope we don't see another game like this. To be honest, though, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't enjoy it all that
Yeah.
much. It was very frustrating.
Yeah, to answer your question, you never see what we saw with the Bellinger and Turner thing, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And by the way, I'll just mention, yes, new surroundings for me, temporary surroundings, out of town on vacation, but wasn't going to miss opening day and the live show for that. So here we are out at the Oregon coast. But let's get into it. I mean, I think the headline is Clayton Kershaw, and this is a guy who had a really, really bad spring, and it's one of those things that as Dodger fans, we just write off and say, no big deal. It's spring training, ERA in the double digits. You have to scroll over a page on the Dodger pitching team to find Kershaw's ERA. He comes into today, and I mean, if I'm being honest, he didn't look great. 5 2/3, 10 hits. Yes, 9 of them were singles, 6 runs, 5 of them earned, 1 walk. I think the big thing was just 2 strikeouts. Just 2 strikeouts. He did keep pitch count low, 77 pitches, 55 of them for strikes, but it was a struggle fest. Somebody tweeted out Kershaw entered the day with the lowest ERA on opening day by any pitcher. I think it was Nightingale who tweeted that out. But I think that the thing that strikes me is 10 hits and 2 strikeouts. He let the ball get put in play 25 different times against him. And in a place like Coors Field, that's going to come back to bite you. I know you were sort of, I don't want to say like you were skeptical of those numbers in the sense that 9 singles, a lot of ground balls. So what did you make of Clayton Kershaw's performance overall?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say it was the best outing of his career because obviously it wasn't. But I don't think it was a bad outing by any means. Like it was just unfortunate. You mentioned the lack of swing and misses. I'd say if you're looking for cause for concern, that would be it right
Yeah.
there. Like ideally, Kershaw's a guy who gets a lot of swing and misses, especially on his slider and his breaking ball. But they're playing at Coors Field, so those the off-speed pitches, they're not going to move as much as they would in other places, which means guys are going to be able to hit it. One reason why I'm not concerned, I should say, is that there wasn't a whole lot of hard contact. There were a few solid singles. There's one triple that was kind of fluky as well, but for the most part, they're all just ground balls that found their way through. And I think he cruised in a lot of the innings, which was a positive sign. And then in maybe the last 2 is when he started kind of laboring a little bit. But for the most part, he was pretty efficient. Like he was pitching into the 6th inning, and he only threw like 76 pitches or whatever it
Yeah.
is. So that's good to see at least. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it was his best outing because it wasn't.
So to go off of what you just said, so he allowed 25 balls to be put in play. Only 21 of them, or excuse me, 21 of them had a launch angle under 10 degrees. So a lot of balls on the ground. But the one thing I will push back on a little, he did allow 9 of those to be hit hard. So yes, they were on the ground. They might have been line drives, but some of these seeing eye singles were hit 97 miles an hour. So when you're hitting a ball 97 mile an hour, the gap between the shortstop and the third baseman, the shortstop and the second baseman gets a lot bigger. Now, the headline is it would be a lot worse if those hard hit balls were all launch angles over 10, right? And he's getting a lot of balls that go out of the park. So that was kind of the weird thing to me, was that, yes, it felt fluky with 9 singles, and yet he was allowing a lot of hard contact and not getting a lot of swings and misses. And so it was kind of one of those things where I bounced back and forth between, did he get lucky? Did he get unlucky? It felt, honestly, if I'm being fair, it felt like he kind of got what he deserved on the day. 5 earned runs feels like a lot. But again, he did allow a lot of hard contact. Now, one other question I was going to ask you, I know the pitch count was down, but there was a moment after the 5th inning that I wondered if Clayton Kershaw should still be in the game. So this was right after Seager allows the ball to go under his glove, scoring another run, should have gotten him out of the inning. Trevor Story singles. They bring Charlie Blackmon up. So at that point, I'm like, you leave Kershaw in, lefty on lefty. His pitch count is low, whatever. He's allowed 4 runs at this point. Kershaw is the leadoff hitter in the next inning, in the first game of the season with the fully rested bullpen. That felt like a weird moment to me where, you know, I said it in the moment, hindsight's 2020, but I wondered if you pull Kershaw there. He had only thrown 65 pitches. That's the argument against. What did you think about that decision, allowing Kershaw, A, to hit for himself, which worked out because he got a single, 2 for 3 on the day. But then he comes back out on the mound in the bottom half, and that was when a ton of singles, seeing eye stuff, etc., gives up another run.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that is just looking at the overall bigger picture as opposed to just trying to win this one game. Like, yes, it's the regular season now, but it's, spring training was 2 days ago. Like, these guys, he's still working on building his pitch count up, and he's not going to accomplish a whole lot by going out there and throwing 65 pitches when, ideally he's building up to be able to throw, 100 pitches an outing or whatever. So I think that played a part of it. I will say I would have probably taken him out a couple batters earlier once that inning started to go south.
Yeah.
Even though guys, they were basically all ground balls. Even so, like, he's starting to labor a little bit. His pitch count in that specific inning was starting to go up. And even though it was low before that, like, I don't know. I just feel like the stress was starting to build on his arm. So I probably would have taken him out a couple batters sooner.
Yeah.
I would not have been in favor of just taking him out after 5 innings, 65 pitches or whatever it was, like, because you still want to keep building him up, get him ready to go for the long season. And if, it didn't work out this time, but most of the time it's going to work out, and you're keeping the bigger picture in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that. I guess it is the regular season, and I think as Dodger fans, we kind of become spoiled to say, it's the regular season, let's build up the pitch count. I mean, if we're being honest, there are other ways to build up the pitch count. He could go out to the bullpen. He could go under the stadium. He could just go throw himself another 25 pitches. Yes, it's not going to be the stress of a game, but this was a tie ball game that Clayton Kershaw was in, or I believe maybe they had just gone up 4-2, and the Dodgers came back, I believe, and tied it in the top of the 6th. But I mean, I hear you a little bit and say, hey, it's early, and again, we got to build them up. But to me, it's like, this is a game, and this does count. And we do think the Padres are the second best team in baseball, and they are in the division. So I'm not overreacting to one game, but I think the philosophy for me that I'm trying to wrap my head around is, how do you value the regular season if you're the Dodgers? Because clearly his stuff he wasn't missing bats. And, in that inning, like yes. So in the bottom of the 6th, seeing eye single, 72 mile an hour exit velocity, incredibly unlucky. The next single smashed up the middle. The third single, 97 mile an hour exit velocity. Stolen base, ground out, and then a 99 mile an hour exit velocity RBI single ground ball again. So that's when Knebel comes in. He gets out of the inning. So he had given up 3 consecutive hard hit balls at that point. So I don't know. There's not really a question in here. I hear what you're saying, and I'm not sort of disagreeing with it. I guess just philosophically, I struggle with, yes, I can buy into that when it's spring training, but in game 1 of the regular season, it feels like maybe things should be taken a little bit differently. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like I just said, I definitely would have taken him out, a couple batters earlier than when he was taken out. For me, I just don't think it would have made sense to take him out after 5 innings when his pitch count was really low. Yes, he had given up a few runs, but they were kind of fluky at that point. Like, literally, basically every single base runner that got on base for the Rockies had scored to that point. There was some sloppy defense in there. Like, it wasn't like he was getting hit around the yard. He was at 5 innings, 65 pitches. You're hoping you could at least get one more out of him. And it's also important to remember, like, yes, the pitching staff is fresh. The season just started, but we got 4
Yeah.
games at Coors Field this weekend. You're going to need a lot of pitching for that. And they don't have an off day for like a week here or whatever it is, you know. So I think that might have played into it.
Fair.
But yeah, I definitely would have taken him out a couple batters sooner, just because we saw he was laboring in that 6th inning. You could tell, even though his pitch count wasn't super high, it looked like he was done at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, keep in mind too, the Dodgers have 3 guys that are long, give you multi innings out
Yeah.
of the bullpen. So this isn't a traditional bullpen either. It's a day where it's like you could bring in a Gonsolin. Obviously, Nelson struggled today, but Nelson, Price, all guys that you could throw in there for 2-3 innings and eat stuff up. So obviously, Kershaw not at his best, but I wouldn't say he was to blame for this, because then you look at the offense, and on one hand, you could say, hey, the offense did a great job of getting base hits. They did a great job of drawing walks. On the flip side, they finished 3 for 16 with runners in scoring position. They leave 14 guys on base. Mookie Betts 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position. Justin Turner 0 for 2. Taylor 0 for 1. Bellinger 0 for 1. Rios 0 for 1. Beatty, who we're going to get to, 0 for 1. Gavin Lux 1 for 2. Seager 1 for 1. And Muncy 1 for 3. So what did you make of the Dodger offense? Again, on one hand, I mean, at one point, I was tweeting it out. They had something like 18 base runners and had only gotten 15 outs, and yet they had like 4 runs. It felt like the type of line you see, and you're like, oh, so the Dodgers are up 9-0 in this game. And instead, they just could not get runs across. So again, small sample size. We're not overreacting here to this, but were you encouraged or discouraged by the offense today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little of both. It's definitely encouraging to see how many guys got on base. I think they had like 15 hits and 8 walks or whatever it is. Like half your guys are getting on base, which is good to see. Like, you want guys on the base pass, but you just got to be better at bringing them in. Like you mentioned, pretty much every guy was over,
Yeah.
with runners in scoring position. That's kind of a fluke, I feel like, when every single guy is doing it. But at the same time, like, we've kind of seen this issue with the Dodgers in the past. Not necessarily in 2020, because I feel like they were pretty great last season with runners in scoring position, especially in the playoffs and with 2 outs. But, previous years, we all know how it's been with this team. So it is a little concerning, but it's one game.
Yeah.
We could see them come out tomorrow and put up 15 runs, and then, we'll be sitting here laughing and saying, why were we, not that we're panicking, but like, why were we concerned at all?
Yeah.
The guys are getting, like, if you look at the straight box score, like 1 through 7 in the Dodgers lineup, all of them got hits. 5 of them had at least 2 hits, and I think 5 of them walked as well. So, like, guys are getting on base 2-3 times a game. They're just not getting runners in. So yeah, it was just one of those unfortunate days, and let's hope it doesn't become a trend, because I feel like there's really not much more frustrating than that, seeing them get 2 guys on, load the bases every inning, and just not score runs.
That 8th hitter, by the way, Austin Barnes, who was 0 for 2, did have 2 walks, so I'll go a little easy. But I've got some thoughts on Austin Barnes. I've got some thoughts on Matt Beatty. We're going to get to those in a moment, okay? Well, let's dive into it, because I do think the way this game played out was a pretty fascinating sort of situation to watch. It had a lot of ups and downs. As I said, 10 of the first 15 Dodgers reached base, and they're winning 1-0. They had 6 hits and 4 walks, 2 double plays, and then the Bellinger thing. So if you weren't paying attention or weren't watching, I forget the inning. I believe it was the top of the third. Cody Bellinger comes up with Justin Turner on first base, smashes a ball to left field, and admittedly, in real time, had no idea if he caught it or didn't catch it. Tapia goes up, ball hits his glove, hits the fence, rolls out of his glove, and over the fence. The problem is the angle at which it all happened. Justin Turner had no clue. So Justin Turner had moved past second base, was standing watching it. He assumes that the ball has been caught, puts his head down, not paying attention to anybody, just looking straight forward at the ground, and starts sprinting back to first base. Well, meanwhile, Bellinger, realizing the ball has gone out, has rounded first base, and is telling Justin Turner, fairly calmly, but just like, what the heck are you doing? The ball is a home run. Turner doesn't see it. Turner runs past Bellinger. So now Bellinger has passed Turner on the base pass. It turns out to be an automatic out for Bellinger, who only gets credit for a single after hitting the ball over the fence. Turner gets to run around the bases and score. The Dodgers get a 1-run lead, 1-0 in the top of the third, but very bizarre moment. I mean, I struggle to blame anyone. Like, Turner was in a rough spot, because if he does catch that and he's not hauling back to first base, he's going to get doubled off. And the way that he caught the ball and then dropped it. Like, if we're being fair, the ball was in his glove and then out. And so if anything, it's like maybe Turner a little bit more awareness of Bellinger and what Bellinger's doing. And I don't know what the first base coach was doing, but I ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it was just bad luck. I don't really blame anyone. I guess if I had to choose, I picked Turner, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see how you could blame this on Turner personally. Like, we have we saw,
Totally.
a million different camera angles. So we're like, what's he doing? But like you got to understand, he's out there in real time, standing 300 feet
Yeah.
away, and it clearly looked like the guy caught it. So the first thing that crosses his mind is, oh shoot, I got to get back to first base so I don't get doubled off here. And yes, you could say, oh, maybe he should have jogged, or like maybe he should have gone a little slower. But no, that's not what you do. Like when you see a guy catches a ball, your job is to get back to the base. And so I'm with you. I think it was just bad luck. It was super unfortunate. Like
Yeah.
we'll watch 161 more Dodger games this season, and we will not see that happen
Yeah.
again. Probably not next year or the year after either. Like that's how crazy this type of play is. For me, if I'm going to blame anyone, I'm just going to blame the rule, because that's a dumb rule.
Yeah.
Like if the ball's over the fence, why does it matter
Yeah.
where the runners are? No one could tag them. No one could get them out. Like the ball's over the fence. It's a home run. Like I don't care if he passed them up like between first and second. They're both going home. They're both going to score on the play.
Yeah.
The ball's over the fence. So I think it's a dumb rule. I think MLB should go back and take a look at that. If anything, maybe like say it's a ground rule double or something, but to call the guy out when he just hit a ball over the fence, like that just seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, there's obviously no advantage gain. I'm thinking of
Yeah.
scenarios where if the ball is in play, it could create a confusing moment for the defense of which guy is which and who's going where kind of thing. So I understand sort of the spirit of the rule. But to your point, if the ball is over the fence before it happened, right? The ball was, it had been ruled a home run, or should have been ruled a home run prior to it passing. Very, very bizarre and totally fair. And I mean, obviously there's Bellinger, again, he's not thinking about any of this, but when he sees Turner running at him, it could be like, hey, I should probably run back to first base and beat him back to the base. But again, nobody is thinking. That's the furthest thing from your mind. He's trying to figure out what happened. So that happens.
Exactly.
The Dodgers get a run. You think, hey, you know what? They've had a bunch of guys on in the first 3 innings. We're going to be okay. Bottom of the third, there's the weird triple that goes over Mookie's head. There's the bunt that scores the runner, and a 2-out RBI single for Nolan Arenado's cousin, you informed me. I was like, that's weird. That guy looks like Arenado. You're like, that's his cousin.
He
I'm
looks
like,
just like him. It's funny.
that sounded vaguely familiar. So Arenado's cousin. Shout out to Daniel for filling me in. But the Dodgers are now down 2-1. Again, the fourth, more of the same. They have 6 hits and 6 walks through 4 innings and 1 run. They're 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position. And I noted Turner and Betts both had 2 opportunities. Your number 1 and your number 3 hitter, both of them were 0 for 2. Muncy and Lux were 0 for 1 each. Turner had a brutal game all around. There's no other way to say it. Not a good one for him. Meanwhile, the Rockies had 4 base runners and 2 of them had scored. The Dodgers had 12 base runners and 1 of them had scored. So it's a rough one. Top of the 5th. Bellinger gets a double, takes third on a pass ball. Muncy strikes out. Taylor strikes out. It's like, just put the ball in play, especially those 2 guys. Yeah. Thankfully, our boy Gavin Lux saves the day, ropes a single, tie game 2-2, feeling good about things. But this is the story. The Rockies immediately respond. Bottom of the 5th, first 2 men on. Pitcher bunts him over. Ground out scores Owings. Ground ball that should end the inning. Seager lets it go right under his glove to tie the game, to take a 4-2 lead in the bottom of the 5th. Kershaw again stays in. Singles, 2 for 3. Shout out to Kershaw, the base hitter. But then we already got into it. Top of the 6th, a couple more runs score. Just not good stuff, basically, for the Dodgers. It all kind of plays out. Kershaw gets pulled. Knebel looks good in 1 inning. Top of the 7th, Gavin Lux singles. Barnes is still at the plate. To me, let's just talk about this right now. Top of the 7th. Here's my, so I tweeted, as soon as the lineup came out, why is Will Smith not playing? And everybody's like, hey, Barnes is his personal catcher. Yes, I get it. But this is my issue. Everybody that's like an Austin Barnes defender looks at it and they're like, well, yeah, I mean, Will Smith's going to play more than 90 games. Well, he's not, because in the top of the 7th with a guy on first, they didn't pitch hit him. And the reason is because you only have 2 catchers and you don't want to risk blah, 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 blah. So this is proof to me of why Will Smith should be starting, because if you're afraid to pinch hit him in this moment, down runs with a guy on first and nobody out and a terrible offensive catcher hitting versus one of the best offensive catchers hitting, that's the part that pisses me off. To be fair, Barnes hits it hard, but it does end up being a double play. He goes 0 for 2 with 2 walks. So this isn't a knock on Barnes necessarily, who actually I thought had a really bad day defensively. But all that aside, this is the thing that pisses me off. Do you agree? Am I crazy on this one?
No, I'm with you 100%. And I was kind of laughing at all the people responding oh, he's Kershaw's personal catcher. Obviously we know that. We watch every game. We know that. But the thing is, we need to get away from that. It can't be that way forever here. We need Will Smith to be the guy. And to add fuel to the fire, I was looking at some post-game comments while you were talking a couple minutes ago. And Dave Roberts was giving an update on Austin Barnes, who actually left the game with an injury. But it turns out Barnes is okay. And Roberts said he's going to be back in the lineup on Saturday, which So we're basically looking at a situation where it's going to be Will Smith and Austin Barnes just rotating at catcher every other game. So it's not a situation of, oh, Barnes is Kershaw's personal
Yeah.
catcher. Like, no, he's going to be catching other guys too. Dave Roberts has said that Will Smith is only going to be catching 90 games, which we both talked about on the last show, and we're saying it again now. It's just ridiculous. Like, they're not comparable players, in my opinion. Like, Will Smith is so much better that, if you want to say Will Smith should be catching, it should be 75-25, then like, okay, fine. I personally would say 80-20 or 85-15. But if you want to say 75-25, fine. Like Will Smith catches 3 games, Barnes catches the 4th, and then do it all over again. That's fine. But for it to be a 50-50 type deal and Will Smith only playing 90 games this season, that just seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, and if 2 catchers is preventing you from hitting Will Smith in that position, then Keibert Ruiz needs to be on the roster. Like, it's very simple. Will Smith is one of your 5 or 6 best hitters, period. If he's not starting, he's definitely your best hitter off the bench. And yet, again, top of the 7th, I'm trying to remember what the exact score was, maybe 6-4, 6-2 at that point, or 6-4. I forget what it is, but 6-4. And Gavin Lux is standing on first, and Barnes hits a new double play. So it's absolutely crushes me on that one, because I can't understand it. And again, catchers can't play every day, and you don't want to destroy Will Smith. He's 26, yada, yada, yada. If he wants to be Kershaw's personal catcher, fine, but he should not be starting any of these other days. And Will Smith should be hitting for him as soon as Clayton Kershaw gets out of the game. And again, if you need to take Matt Beatty off the roster so Keibert Ruiz can have his spot in order to feel good about that, then so be it. But we move on. Jimmy Nelson comes in.
Just real quick, I just want to say I was with you when Barnes stepped to the plate for that at bat in the 7th inning. I was literally screaming, like, where's Will Smith? Yeah. Kershaw's out of the game. We're done with the personal catcher thing. Like, where's Will Smith? And like you said, it was still Barnes. Yeah. So yeah.
And we're not, it's not as if we're talking about Austin Barnes as like a league average hitter. He is a below average hitter. This is not hyperbole. He is the worst hitter on the Dodgers roster. Like, and it's probably not close. I mean, whatever you feel about Matt Beatty, he's worse than Matt Beatty. He's definitely worse than Zach McKinstry. He's definitely worse than Taylor and Pollock and Rios. Like, he is by far the worst guy. He's the last guy you want up in a big moment. And yet he keeps finding himself in the midst of them. So he stays in the game. The Dodgers hit into a double play. Jimmy Nelson comes in for the 7th. Pretty disappointing day for him. He's a guy a lot of people were excited about. You and I both really fired up. He looked pretty rough. Walk, double, wild pitch. I call it a pass ball. I think I got graded a wild pitch. The second one that Barnes got hurt on definitely should have been caught. I also don't understand why Barnes didn't throw it to Nelson. It felt like that was the more likely play there, was to pitch it to Nelson for the tag. Instead, he dives at him, gets himself hurt, cuts open his hand, trying to make the tag. Nelson gives up a walk, and then Scott Alexander comes in to put out the fire, like we all expect Scott Alexander to do in that moment. Top of the 8th, Zach McKinstry doubles. Mookie grounds out. Corey Seager RBI single. Hold on to that Zach McKinstry double, because it's going to be relevant here in a moment.
Just real quick on Seager, though, he got on base 4 times today. That the MVP campaign's off to a good start.
Hopefully they didn't see the defensive play there in the.
It's all right. That'll be a thing of the past when he's batting 350.
Okay, so the Dodgers come up in the 9th. They're down by 3 runs. They scrape one back. The Seager one turns out to be big. They scrape one back. Muncy leadoff triple. I will not say those words again all season, I can assure you. Okay, Max Muncy leadoff triple. Chris Taylor walks. The tying run is up.
Great AB for Taylor.
Yeah,
there.
Absolutely. Edwin Rios comes up, which I like. Gets into a hole 0-2. Terrible strike 3 call. Terrible. It's 3 or 4 inches off. Now, he was down 0-2, so it's not like it was like a 3-2 count. Should have been a walk. It was 0-2, so whatever. I'll write that one off. Will Smith comes in. I'm tweeting, Bill, save us. He takes a hit by pitch. Just a team player right there. So then Zach McKinstry's up. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, I like this. We got McKinstry, we got Mookie. Yep. McKinstry had a tough at bat the first time, ends up roping a double down the right field line. What does Dave Roberts do? Matt Beatty comes in. Now, this is not hindsight. You can check my timeline. You can check the timestamps. I immediately am like, what the heck are we doing? This makes no sense. McKinstry's a better hitter. He just had a better at bat. He's been in the game. He's not cold. They bring in Beatty. What does Beatty do? He watches strike 1. He watches strike 2. He watches strike 3. 3 pitches. All fastballs. And he walks back to the dugout. Mookie comes up, can't do anything. Again, the Dodgers finished 3 for 16 with runners in scoring position. Mookie 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position. 14 guys left on base in a game they lose by 3. It's a tough pill to swallow. The Beatty thing kills me. I don't know. Like, can you give me your best attempt at explaining why you would put Matt Beatty in that moment instead of Zach McKinstry?
I don't understand it other than maybe like Beatty's got more experience. Like McKinstry's only played, 2 or 3 games in the major leagues, but like still, I'm with you here. I'm sticking with McKinstry there. He just hit a double. Overall, I'd say he's just a better hitter. I think you said the same thing.
Yeah.
I agree with you there. And to me, it just made no, like, it wasn't even a case of, oh, we wanted a better matchup, so we switched a righty out for a lefty. Like, no, they both bat
Right.
lefty. There was a righty on the mound. Like, it wasn't that. So I didn't understand what it was. You're bringing up a guy who's been sitting on the bench for 3.5 hours, ice cold, to come in a guy against the guy throwing 100 miles an hour. Like that, I could have told you that wasn't going to go well. I didn't think it would go as bad as it actually went. Like, he just went up there and looked at 3 strikes. But yeah, I didn't see the need to make that move. And I'll take it one step further. I'm not even trying to be mean here, but we've been talking about this all spring. We don't really see where, Matt Beatty fits on this roster. If he was a right-handed bat, I feel like this bench is kind of missing that one extra right-handed bat. They had AJ Pollock out there today, but I feel like with McKinstry, with Rios, they got left-handed, guys. They don't need another lefty who's not, an exceptional defender. Like, Beatty's an average defender, not bad, but he's not known for his glove. So I just don't see what his purpose is. And I didn't really think about the Keibert Ruiz option, but now that you're bringing it up, I don't mind that at all. Like, why not carry 3 catchers? First of all, Ruiz looked great in the spring.
Arguably a better hitter anyways.
Yeah, small sample, but I don't think I saw him get out in the spring. And then having him on the roster, that also allows on days that Matt Barnes, not Matt Barnes, Austin Barnes.
Hey, I like it. I like it. Let's just call him both Matt Beatty and Austin Barnes. Just smash them together. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. But on days when Barnes is catching, then you could you're free to use Will Smith as a pinch hitter there. So yeah, I think it would make way more sense to have Ruiz on this roster right now.
Ruiz also a pinch hitter too. So if you're just talking about versatility off the bench, he gives you both sides. Gabriel asked this question. I hadn't thought of it till just now. Why is AJ Pollock not pinch hitting in that spot? Like, why is Matt Beatty coming off the bench before Pollock? Is Pollock hurt or something?
I think I think it was just because it was a tough righty, and we've seen what Pollock does against righties that throw 100 in the postseason. So I think you want the lefty in that matchup, but I just would have stuck with the better one in McKinstry.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, there's so many pieces to the McKinstry decision that frustrate me, because if Beatty was already in the game, I'm not going to be here saying, how come you don't put McKinstry in that spot?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not arguing for that. Now, I'm also, like, if McKinstry had struck out, watched 3 strikes in his first at bat, like, I wouldn't have an issue with this. But that's not what happened. He battled. He had a tough strike call go against him. He thought he walked. He comes back into the box and slaps a double, ends up coming around to score. So, like, that was his first at bat. He wasn't too scared. It wasn't too big for him. And he comes up clutch for the Dodgers. And then you pull him to get to Matt Beatty. It just, I mean, this isn't, like, intended to be a bashing Matt Beatty. The decision has so much more to do with McKinstry than it does to Beatty. And the fact that he just watched 3 strikes kind of just is the icing on the cake. That's not the entree there. That's just the dessert afterwards to prove how little sense this made. I'll say one other thing about Roberts. The announcing Joe Davis and Oral Hershiser mentioned a lot of the time about, Coors Field and what it does to breaking stuff. Didn't it feel like it was weird, the relief pitchers that they chose to bring in for this game? I realize it's a long series. They're going to have to use a lot of guys, but I mean, Knebel comes in, he throws fastballs, he gets a strikeout on the fastball. He only sees one guy. But a lot of, Nelson, for example, comes in, it's like he's reliant on his breaking stuff. Surely there were other guys, like a guy like Trinan or somebody out there who's less reliant on breaking stuff and can just throw sinkers and fastballs and that kind of thing. Am I overthinking that? I mean, what did you think about that?
No, I definitely think there's something to it. I don't know the reason why they went with, the guys that they did with. Maybe it was because they were trailing and not ahead. Fair. Like, I doubt we see Jimmy Nelson in that spot if it's a tie game or the Dodgers are up one. Like, they were down a couple runs at that point. But still, like, it's Coors Field. Like, being down 2 or 3 runs at Coors Field is like being down 1 run, anywhere else. So that was still, we saw in the 9th, they loaded the bases and had a chance with, their best player up at bat with the bases loaded. So, a 3-run lead at Coors Field is nothing. So I'm with you. I would not have went with Nelson in that situation. I will say it was cool to see him get his first outing out of the way there. Yeah. He hasn't pitched in like 2 years now or whatever it is. So it's been a while for him. I'm sure that kind of played into his wildness. He might have, nerves could have been there. I know if I was up there and hadn't pitched in 2 years, I'd be a little nervous. but yeah, I don't understand a lot of the decisions that Roberts made today. Yeah, there's just a lot of questionable decisions in my opinion.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. I didn't prep you for this, but just talking about some of the guys who had a positive day. I mentioned we're not going to be negative on this show. I mentioned a couple guys who I thought had off days, for one reason or another, defensively, offensively, whatever it might be. I'll start with the first guy that jumped to mind, Cody Bellinger. It's a guy you and I both said, hey, lots of questions about him, the stance and whatnot, and coming back from the injury. He looked good. He hit what should have been a home run, didn't count. He gets a double. He takes third on the pass ball. I just thought, for me, that if there's a star of the game for the Dodgers, it was Bellinger. Obviously, not as sort of involved as the game moved on, but I thought he played really, really well. 2 for 4. Again, should have been a home run and a double. Also a walk for Cody Bellinger. Did score a run. Should have been 2 runs. Should have had 2 RBIs. But Bellinger, to me, was a winner. Anybody else? I got a couple more on my list, but any other winners from today as far as the Dodgers are concerned?
Yeah, I mean, just real quick first, I'm with you on Belly there. And it was good to see him going the other way.
Yeah.
Both of his hits were to left field, which is good to see. I feel like when we see him struggle, he's trying to, pull everything and hit a moonshot to right. And sometimes that's not the right approach.
Yeah.
So it was good to see him going the other way. Yeah, like you said, 2 hits, should have been a homer. I mean, Corey Seager offensively, he had a couple hits, a couple walks, taking some good ABs. He wasn't great defensively. So I don't know if I could call him a star of the game when I feel like his defense had a bigger impact than his offense did. But yeah, I mean, let me try to think who else. Gavin Lux had a couple hits. That was good to see. He came up. We talked about that at bat where I forgot who was on
Taylor
third.
and Muncy. Bellinger gets the third. Taylor and Muncy both strike out.
Got to third with no outs, and then Muncy strikes out. Taylor strikes out, and we're like, oh no, here we go again. And then I thought it was big for Lux to come up with that hit there in that spot. So yeah, and his defense actually, he was one of the guys who actually looked pretty good on defense too. I feel like he made all the plays. So. But other than that, it wasn't too many.
Yeah, you get slim pickings, 3 guys that sort of maybe the honorable mention category. McKinstry, again, first game for him, he slaps that double. Didn't make any mistakes defensively. I don't even know if he had a ball hit to him, but I don't remember an error. So
he caught a pop.
There you go. Hey, no errors.
He was only out there a couple
1,000 fielding percentage for McKinstry, but that was good just to see him get up there. And again, I thought it's weird. It was just a weird at bat, and I thought he battled really well. Corey Knebel, honorable mention because he only pitched for 1 batter, but was just blowing fastballs by guys.
Hey, he came in with 2 guys on. That's not easy. Your first appearance of the year, he got out of that. So I mean, obviously it's only 1 outing, but we've said all along that we see him as being a high leverage guy. So I'm curious to see, what he looks like, going forward.
The final guy on my list, if Shohei Ohtani gets split into 2 hitters and into 2 people in fantasy baseball as a hitter and a pitcher, then I'm going Clayton Kershaw, the hitter, gets an honorable mention winner of the game. 2 for 3. I mean, I was like, why is this guy back in? Pull him, put a pinch hitter in. He slaps a single. I'm like, all right, fine. I should stop complaining. The effort on the base pass, maybe not as high as I would like it to be. Maybe it was too high. I don't know. But I wasn't convinced he was going to score on that sac fly. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, he was great at the plate today. I think he's got like a 7-game hitting streak at Coors Field now or something like that, batting .350 there. But hey, those 2 hits, those go a long way. I feel like his average is going to be pretty high now for the first at least couple months. So that always looks good, when you're a pitcher and they're flashing your batting average and it's 300 or so.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, any other thoughts that you have before we look ahead to tomorrow? Any other thoughts that you have from this game, things you want to touch on? Folks in the comments, questions, if you've got some, let us know as well.
Yeah, let's hear if guys got some questions. I mean, I feel like we talked through it all. But I mean, the one thing I would say is just don't try not to get too down after today. Like, this is still a really talented team. They're still the team to beat. Like, it's only 1 game. It was a sloppy one, that's for sure. Like, I'm not sitting here saying they played well by any means, but tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
It's a long series. We could still take 3 out of 4, and that you got to feel good about that at Coors Field.
Yeah, HG makes a great point. I mean, Muncy had a rough year last year, so seeing him get a couple base hits, including again a stand-up triple, or maybe he had to slide. That was a good one. He also says Knebel, kind of thing. Terry says too many men left on base. Absolutely, that was the problem. As well. So yes, I agree as well. HG, it was a sleeper, not the greatest one in the world. Well, let's move on to tomorrow. Senzatella on the mound for the Rockies, and Trevor Bauer makes his regular season debut for the Dodgers. It's a 5:40 game, obviously back in Coors Field. How are you feeling about that one? I mean, obviously a massive advantage in the pitching department, you would think.
Yeah.
Bauer's a guy
Yeah.
that relies on spin rate and stuff, so maybe we'll see how that plays in Coors Field. His first time there as a Dodger. I'm sure he's pitched there before, but what are you looking forward to in tomorrow's game?
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be all eyes on Bauer, right? I mean, he's the $40 million man.
Yeah.
He's for taking the mound tomorrow. He's going to be making over $1 million just for that start alone. So I feel like there's definitely some pressure on him to perform. He's coming to a team who, they won the World Series without him. They did not need him. He's more of a luxury. So it's up to him to go out and prove his worth. And I feel like this is, the perfect time he could do that. Coming off a rough loss today.
Yeah.
I feel like in the past, the Dodgers have spoken. They've been vocal about how they don't want to lose two games in a row, or they don't want to have any, losing streaks. So I feel like the day after a loss, that's when you got to come in and play stopper. With that being said, it is the first game of the season, so it's not a do or die situation here. But it would be nice to see him go out there, have a good outing. The Dodgers, get back on track with a win.
Yeah, we saw some of the stuff in spring training, closing an eye and whatnot. Obviously, the expectation is all of that will disappear now that we are into the regular season. So it'll definitely be interesting. I mean, the Rockies, their lineup is decent. So, I don't think the Rockies as a team are any good. I think their pitching is pretty terrible. And I think we're going to start to see that tomorrow and in the next couple games after that. But offensively, they got some guys that can hit. Obviously, Trevor Story is a force. Crone at first base, he can hit a little bit. Blackman as well. And then some other guys. I mean, so they have guys that can contribute offensively. The question for the Dodgers is if they can silence the offense, they should be fine. Again, the Dodgers faced their best pitcher and chased him after 4 innings and after putting on 3 guys an inning, basically, for the first 4. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting. I'd love to see what Bauer does tomorrow. I'm excited. Hopefully it's dominant. I think there's been some questions. He obviously, like Kershaw, like Buehler, has not been great in spring training. And so you can say, hey, I'm messing around. Hey, I'm closing an eye. Hey, I'm dialing in. Okay. But when the lights come on tomorrow at 5:40, it better be great. It better be great because you can't make excuses.
He's getting paid well for that start. Yeah. So he's got to give us his best effort at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, my hope is that we'll see it. Like, I have the expectation that I think he's the type of guy that probably, obviously I'm not saying he wanted them to lose, but the fact that they lost and that they're kind of not backs against the wall, nobody's panicking. We are far, like the most panic is outside of the locker room, not inside of the locker room. But I'm sure there's a little bit of like, all right, let's bounce back. Let's play better tomorrow. Let's get hits. Let's get outs, that kind of thing. And I think Bauer probably thrives on that. And so obviously the Dodgers will be heavy favorites again. They were heavy favorites today. Less heavy favorites than people expected. Obviously Vegas seems to know those types of things and get them right somehow. But score prediction from you tomorrow as we close out the show here in a little bit, unless anybody's got questions. But I'll throw out the question of score prediction. Daniel, what do you think tomorrow?
I think it's going to be a much different game from today, in the sense that I think they're going to actually score guys, hit with runners in scoring position. So I think the Dodgers are going to be able to put up 9 runs. Bauer pitches well. 9-4 game, I say, is the final. I'm not predicting much less, much fewer than 4 for a Coors Field game for any team. But 9-4, I think that's a good convincing win.
Okay, Laura's got 7-3. HG's got 11-7. I'm with you. I think I predicted 7-5 today. I'll stick with the 7 number. That feels about right. I'm going to go 7-2. I just think Dodger pitching is going to be better tomorrow. I think they got a little unlucky as far as just sequencing and stuff. And so I'll go 7-2. So, Laura, I'm pretty close to you. You said 7-3. But we both feel good. Obviously you hate to lose. Now they can't say anything about they've always been above 500 or whatever, that they haven't been in first place the whole season. They're not in first place. 161 to go. There's no panic. There's no overreaction. I had somebody saying, hey, chill out. Like, it's the first game. Yeah, well, it's all we got too. So it's what we're looking at. It's what we're here to talk about.
Neither of us are freaking out. So if we're like coming off that way, that's not how we feel at all. Like, we're just talking through the game. And one thing I will say about tomorrow that's good is we'll get Will Smith behind the plate. So he'll be in the lineup. That'll be good. We'll probably get AJ Pollock in the lineup. I'm pretty sure Dave Roberts said he'll be playing the last 3 games of this series. So should be a good looking lineup in there tomorrow. And it's another righty who the Dodgers tend to hit well. So yeah.
Well, real quick, because that was actually one thing I failed to bring up. I wanted to. The decision to start Chris Taylor in left field. I mean, we've said the whole time Chris Taylor is going to play a bunch. I think Dave Roberts said Pollock and Taylor are both going to play 3 out of 4 games this series. So obviously Taylor's going to be moving around. I presume he'll get at least 1, maybe 2 games at second base. But what did you think? I mean, I guess I was just surprised it happened on opening day, not because Chris Taylor doesn't deserve to play, but it's kind of this idea of like, oh, AJ Pollock's our everyday left fielder, ... but he's not starting on opening day. Felt a little strange to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was a little strange. Like you said, it's not like Chris Taylor wasn't deserving. If in my opinion, if I was making the lineup, I probably would have went with him there. I just didn't think the Dodgers would do it. Like you said, AJ Pollock is basically the starting left fielder. Like Chris Taylor is going to be moving all around, whereas that's the only place that Pollock's going to be playing. So you would think on opening day, he'd be out there, but at the end of the day, it's just game 1 of 162. So Dave Roberts said he's going to be playing 3 out of 4. So if you told me that before, like he's going to be playing 3 out of 4 in the series, like that's what I would have expected. So I didn't expect it to the one he's sitting out to be the first game, but I expected 3 out of 4. So it's not a huge surprise there. But yeah, we'll see him in the lineup tomorrow. And yeah, Chris Taylor, we'll see him at second base for a game, maybe shortstop for a game. We'll see. But yeah, he'll be moving all over. Him and McKinstry are now kind of their, utility guys.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, hey, we appreciate you guys joining us, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, wherever you are. Dodgers lose 8-5. A little bit of sloppiness from Kershaw and the hitters, but at the end of the day, it's game 1 of 162. We appreciate you joining us. Real quick, just as far as our schedule, Daniel and I, every Sunday night, starting this Sunday, are going to be recording a DodgerHeads. Normally, we've been doing a live Monday night. We're going to start recording that on Sundays. It'll go out Sunday night, early Monday morning. That'll kind of be our week in review, looking back on what has happened, as well as previewing the week ahead. And then every Thursday or Friday, depending on the schedule, we're going to be going live. So there's going to be one recorded show and one live show every week. Next Thursday, we're going to go live again because that's the Dodgers home opener. Some conversations about whether we should do it at 4 o'clock like we did today, right after the game ends, or if whether we're going to wait until 7 or 8 p.m. So stay tuned on that, but we are going to do a live show again next Thursday, and so count on that. Live show at the end of the week, and then a recorded show to begin your week every week. So make sure you're subscribed here, Dodger Blue 1958. We're also going to have daily videos posted as well, breaking down little smaller stories or moments that come up throughout the week. So Dodger Blue 1958 on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed. You've got the notification bell rung. Dodger Blue 1958 everywhere on social media. That's Daniel Starkand. I'm Jeff Spiegel. We appreciate you joining us. And even though the Dodgers lost, remember, we're still champs. This is still the home of the defending World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, and we're going to let Vin Scully take us home.
The best team holding a trophy high in the air. The Los Angeles Dodgers, champions of the baseball world.